this doesn't bump me out because I'm so tech challenged. So you see me keep hitting that. It's hitting that. But it's fun to be here with y'all. I wanted to though today just pray for us as we start because it's Ash Wednesday, and we just wanted to honor the Lord in our time. We want to do that anyway, but just to pray as we open, recognizing what it is. So let's pray. God, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for bringing us all together. We're so grateful. Most of all, we're thankful for Jesus who died for us, and we want to celebrate Ash Wednesday. We want to do that in a way that honors you. So just keep us mindful as we go throughout today and to ponder that. And we're grateful. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. And I get to introduce Carol, which is really fun for me, because Carol, she was raised in Houston, and she's got lots of fun Houston stories, but
Mostly about Sarah Franklin.
Yes! That's so fun, our wills colliding. But Carol graduated from UT with the BS in Education, and then she, in the summer of 1982, both of us joined crew staff together. I was from Georgia, and she's from here, and she went to UT, and then I got assigned to UT. So I got to meet a lot of her family, and it's been really fun to reconnect over the years and find fun stories about Carol. But Carol and Stuart work with crew. They got married, soon after that. I won't tell any funny stories about you tearing up pictures. She got mad at Stuart.
We broke up.
She burned their pictures.
Like, where are those pictures?
Carol's not impetuous in any way. Not at all. But Carol and Stuart have ministered together with crew through AIA lately, but they've led ministries in Texas, in Colorado, and Costa Rica. And now they serve here with the regional team. They have 3 lovely children that they care deeply about. You'll get to hear some of those. There they are. Let's see, Jared's on the left. And Michelle, Rachel.
No, Michelle.
Michelle is blonde. Rachel's dark.
Michelle's younger but taller, yeah.
Yes, so, but Rachel's the oldest. And she's going to share a little bit about that today. She is continuing to lead us here in this group, which we're really grateful for, as well as the Athletes in Action Ministry Women. And a new venture, she's starting life coaching. So I can't wait to hear from her. I'm really grateful the Lord has rewired our lives and collided. We've been in Colorado at the same time, in the same state. And it's fun for me to see that in all of you too, that our worlds have collided in different aspects, and we're just grateful that Carol's been leading us well in this time. So,
thank you, Jen.
Go for it.
Thank you. Sure appreciate you a lot. So it's great to be with you all. This is such a privilege and honor. I have to say that this particular subject is so raw and fresh and present in my life, so it's kind of feels vulnerable to be talking about it, but I feel like God put on my heart a while back, you need to put your thoughts together on what you're learning in this area of leading yourself and not your grown kids, and that's what I want to do today. So thank you for being here. It seems like yesterday when one of our daughters was 17 years old, and you will be familiar with this scenario. I was in the kitchen, and it was getting to be that afternoon hour, and you know how you pretend like you're really busy, but you're just waiting for them to walk through the door and see how their day was. That particular day, my husband did something uncharacteristically. He popped in from the office, and he had to get something. And when he was leaving, he said, "Hun," he said, I forgot to tell you, she had been going through a really challenging time in her life. She was trying to figure out her faith, figure out her friends, dealing with body image, all the things that girls can deal with at any time, but especially in those ages. And we were heavy-hearted for her, and we were sad. And so my husband said, "Hey, if she comes home today and runs up the stairs, don't follow after her." He said, "If she comes home and walks in the kitchen and talks to you, that's great. But don't run up the stairs after her." Bye, hun. Okay, what was that? But little did I know how that little bit of wisdom from him would impact me. Because I'm one of those moms, I can't see Karen over there. I'm one of those moms who has followed on my kids' heels. I have been a stair runner. And I know in this group we have women that are on both sides. You know, some of us maybe were so laid back we didn't get in their business, and then other ones like me who were running the scares. And it wasn't until about literally probably the last 3 to 5 years where I have been on a journey of being more liberated from following after. Now, when I say grown kids, I'm talking about probably college and beyond. And so that's what I'll be talking about. But I want to start and read an interesting story that I found. It's kind of intense, but it will prove the point of what I'm talking about. Kind of in this area of overprotection. And then we'll get into kind of the core of our talk. But just listen, and it takes a couple minutes to read. My friend Chuck Solomon tells a story about an orphan baby fox that a woman discovered in the country one frigid winter day. She took pity on it, carried it home, bottle-fed it, weaned it onto dog food, and taught it tricks such as pushing a button with its nose to fill its water bowl. She loved it almost as if it were a child. 2 years later, she had the most beautiful, full-grown fox in the country. In the county, excuse me. But she began to realize that the time for her to set the fox free to enjoy the fringe benefits of adult fox life had arrived. So she returned him to the side of their first meeting, and after kissing him goodbye, put him out into the woods. As she drove away, her mind was churning. Oh, how this hurts, she thought. I've poured my life into that fox for 2 years. I hope he can somehow appreciate that without me, he'd be dead. This isn't resonating at all. But what became of the fox? It was January and getting down to 5 degrees at night. The fox curled up into a ball to try to keep warm. As the cold dawn would break, he could hardly get unballed. He was so stiff. He was hungry and frigid. Something little would scurry past his nose. It was normal fox food, but he didn't know it. He was looking for his dog food. He was thirsty, but knew nothing of searching out the spring a mile away. He was looking for his button to push. In 2 weeks, he was a dead fox. That woman killed him just as surely as if she'd shot him in the head with a 22. Is that a pistol? I don't know. She killed him with what she called love, but it wasn't love. I'll stop there. That's intense, but I think you get the point of that. And as I launch into this today, I want to share with you, and there's 2 sections, you should have an outline, but how I try to, parentheses, unsuccessfully lead my grandchildren, and how I am seeking present tense to lead myself. And so I'm going to have 3 points for each of those, but as I thought and prayed about a scripture, I kept being led back to this section in the New Testament, in the book of Hebrews, chapter 12. The first part of the chapter talks about Jesus being the author and perfecter of our faith, and then right in the middle of the chapter, it's about the subject of discipline. And I think for my journey in learning to lead myself and letting, not my grown kids, has been one of discipline. And so we're gonna, that section of scripture will be our backdrop. And I was gonna ask, Julia, do you have a copy of it?
I prayed for it this morning.
Okay, it's verses, there was an outline that was passed out here.
11 through 15.
11 through 15, go for it. And your
Right.
version might be different, but that's great.
I'm honored to read it for you. Y'all, I don't know anybody that has led their kids and themselves better, because I've been in a place with my kids, and Carol, you are my go-to, and she's just got so much wisdom, so. I love you, Carol. Love you.
And no my mistakes.
Okay, no discipline seems pleasant. I've got that one down. At the time, but painful. I have that one down too. Later on, however, it produces a fruit of harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Therefore, strengthen your feeble arms and your weak knees. Make level paths for your feet, so that the lame may not be disabled, but rather healed. Make every effort to live in peace with everyone and to be holy. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and to defile many.
Thank you so much, Julia. So that will be our backdrop as I share. So how I tried to lead my grown kids. Three points. We could have a lot. I'm sure all of us in this could share a lot about this. I do want to point out at the bottom of your sheet, there's a favorite verse on the outline, our favorite quote. And I've used this before in this group, but it's by Charles Swindoll, who's an author and a speaker, a pastor. But he says that reality is the most secure place on earth to be. So wherever we are today in our journeys with this whole area, we can be secure. We can be secure, especially as we bring God into it and we face the good, the bad, the ugly with Him. So that gives me a lot of peace about my situation and my journey, and I hope it does about you. So I want to share 3 points about how I tried to lead my grown kids. And the first one is, this is how you should think, ... And in my case, a lot of that came through bombarding my children with resources, honestly. I'm a resource person. I love books, I love podcasts, I love, learning from different people. And when my kids got to college and beyond, I would frequently, probably 2 times a week, I don't even remember how many times, be sending them things. And at one point, and maybe it's just the grace of God, I'm forgetting which of my children said this, but one of them just said, Mom, enough with the resources, enough. And I was like, whoa, okay, pay attention. So I think what I was doing is, and I'm not saying that it's so encouraging to be able to send your kid a verse or a thought, or that's not wrong, but I think I was doing what is one of my weaknesses. I was over-functioning. I was doing it too much. And I was doing it really because I wanted to connect with them. I think that was kind of what was at the heart of it. And so anyway, Hebrews 12:11, and I know the verses, I don't think you have them numbered there, but it's the first one. It says, now no chastening seems to be joyful for the present, but painful. Nevertheless, after it yields a peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. I feel like this area of holding back for me was one that ended up yielding more peace in my life. So I just, instead of just mindlessly, oh, that's good, doing that, I began to say, Lord, should I send this or should I not? In fact, I had an incident last week, I have to laugh, where our son texted me, and we were in Florida at a conference, and he asked me about this girl. It's kind of a family friend, really neat girl, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is awesome. And he's like, I think I'm gonna get in touch with her, and we kind of went back and forth. Well, about 3 days later, I thought, oh, I wonder if he got in touch with her. So I started putting the text together, and then it was like, delete. And I thought, maybe because I knew I was gonna be giving this talk, right? But it's like, I just felt like he would not appreciate me trying to check up on him. It's kind of like we're college graduates, we're gainfully employed, but mommy needs to talk and, speak into your life. And so anyway, like I said, there's a balance there, and it's not at all wrong to do that. I think God has us do that at times, but for me, I had to learn to not push on them, this is how you think. A friend of mine, I wanted to share an example. She's a single mom of 2 grown sons who are married. And she really is an example to me of how she, hi Kristen, I didn't see you, how she has raised her sons and had kind of a loose grip, and maybe I'm just attracted to that. And like I said, I know some of us come from different areas, but I asked her, I said, Kathy, tell me how you've done this. And I'm gonna read what she said. She said, they've made it easy for me because they don't answer my texts immediately. I bet you can relate to that. And 2 boys, right? They've made it clear that they have their own lives without saying it. At first I got my feelings hurt, but now I've come to appreciate that they are independent. I just really like that. I love that part, they've made it easy for me. But I think a lot of that has been her, deciding to let that go. So that's the first point. This is how you should think. The second would be, this is how you should connect with me. Now, this is the most loaded of the 3 points for me. This is the most painful of the 3 points. This has been where I've made the most mistakes. I think a question we ask ourselves is, what needs are you seeking to meet through your grown kids? Another thing my husband has said, he's kind of the opposite of me. He's kind of the slow and steady, wise, And he goes, you know, our kids are not here for the purpose of encouraging us. Like, that's not their purpose in life. I'm like, oh, really? Darn, you know? But I think that's been freeing to realize, because guess what? We have a lot of encouragement right here in this room. I mean, I have women in my life that encourage me deeply. I have a husband that encourages me, and other family members. So for me to kind of make that transfer from wanting the kids to do that has been more helpful, and I'm very much in process. So a couple years ago, I had what I would call the Mother's Day from you-know-where. It was not a good Mother's Day. We went out to a cute little Austin restaurant, and somewhere in the course of our conversation, my upbringing came up, and some of the patterns that I have in my life, like being controlling and prideful and things that kind of, come from some of my patterns from my background. And they were kind of making jokes about it, but I was thinking, this is Mother's Day. Like, you're bringing this up on Mother's Day. So I started to get really kind of mad, and then I started to cry. You know how you do both those things. And then I put my sunglasses on in the restaurant. And so they ended up kind of realizing this was not appropriate. And, they kind of, tried to apologize, and we kind of, to get back, on board or be tough and, all that kind of thing, which I'm not the best at being tough either. And anyway, we came to kind of a close of the time, and I was mad at my husband too. And so when we walked out to the car and got in, I said, I don't want to talk at all the whole way home. So we were like completely quiet the whole way home. And when I got home, I went up to my guest room and I cried some more. And then I got the gift card one of my kids had given me. I went and spent the whole thing. Good coping skills. They gave me a gift card, so they got it. But, the weird thing about that Mother's Day from you-know-where is that was a turning point for me. Because I kind of came before God and said, what am I doing? What am I looking for? Those of you who know me, I am a very relationally intense person, and I'm not proud of that. And I have to ratchet back and, and learn for God to produce that. I guess what the word meekness, strength under control. And so, my kids have felt that. They felt that for me. And so I think I began to think, what would it look like? And this is the best visual that one of my friends, I won't mention who it is, she's videoing me right now, but it's called the red, yellow, and green light rule. Okay, I think I mentioned this maybe last semester when we talked, but this works really well with mother-daughter relationships, especially. I guess, stay with the son, but the mother-daughter one. So we know what red light means, stop. We know yellow means caution. We know green means go. And I read this in a book that in relationships you kind of have to determine where you're at in that relationship. But as I processed this with a mentor of mine, we were applying it to grown children. And she said, Carol, I feel like if you have a yellow light, it doesn't mean negative, but cautious. When the kids are in their 20s, she said when they get to their 30s and get more established and get, married kids, whatever, then it'll turn green probably. But keep a yellow light now. And I was like, that is profound. So Janet and I would be like, yellow light, yellow light. That's our little code word. But anyway, so that kind of goes along with what has helped in this area of how intensely I wanted to connect with my kids. In fact, the next verse, therefore strengthen the hands which hang down and the feeble knees. I started laughing. I'm like, don't strengthen the knees to run up the stairs, right? But this talks about our need for encouragement from each other. We always say with raising kids, it takes a village. And that's what we are in this group. And so we have to spur each other on. I think, I know the head of our family life ministry with our ministry crew, someone asked her, when are you going to write the book about raising grown kids? She goes, I'm not getting anywhere with that. We're not raising, but responding, because it's very tricky. It's very challenging. So I think those are the main things I wanted to share there. I wanted to share one example too. No, I have two more things to share in there. I told you this was a longer section. A friend of mine that I was with in Florida last week at these meetings, she said, you know, Carol, I had just the opposite problem with my kids. She's a quieter person, she's more reserved. And she said, we got a phone call this year, you know, the phone call from the kid where they're like, I need to talk to you and Dad at the same time. You're like, okay. And she said, she got the call and she just said, you know, I want you to know that when I got engaged and you got the job transfer to Florida, I was sitting there and I was in the middle of all this and you just up and left like it was nothing. And she said, I didn't feel pursued at all by you all, and I felt kind of abandoned. And my friend apologized to her and said, I'm so sorry you felt that way. And Laurie told me, she said, Carol, I have the opposite problem. I'm way too hesitant about getting into their lives. And so the whole area of apologizing, I've done that with my kids. I'm sure many of us had. I'm so sorry for, you know, the intensity of how I've been. I'm so sorry, you know, for the things that might have been hurtful and impacted you in a way that wasn't positive. And in fact, when we do that, this isn't a time to beat ourselves up. I meant to say that in the beginning. This isn't a shaming time. In fact, we're going to talk about the beautiful part of this whole thing. But it is just being authentic with them and you know, they know, you know, they've got our numbers pretty much at this stage. So. And I will say there are messy exceptions to this connection thing. If you're in a crisis with a grown child, I've told y'all this before, we had a very painful and unexpected divorce of our oldest daughter. That was a time when we were in the trenches with her, and we were supposed to be. And for another friend of mine, her son had a brain tumor, another addictions with children. There's times when, you know, that is an exception to that. But we still need to have intentional self-care, even in those times. So, that's the end of that long point. The last point, under the whole idea of how I try to unsuccessfully lead my grown kids, is this is what you should value. So that kind of has a little bit to do with this is how you should think. So this is how you should think, this is how you should connect with me, this is what you should value. And this does overlap with the whole thinking thing, but for example, for our grown kids, it's family gatherings. I know nobody can relate to that one, right? Like, I want you to be at this family gathering. And see, we have single kids. So that is so different. I know the rest of you with kids, you know, a lot of you with kids and marriages and grandkids, it's even more complicated. But our kids, even at these, you know, as singles, are very established in their lives. And in fact, I actually had a victory. I'll share a victory with you. One of my daughters asked me what we were doing for Easter, and I told her we're going to Galveston with my sister and family, and she said, well, I've got this at my church, I've got this with my community. What do you think? I said, do whatever you want to do. I mean, you are completely established, and she's coming. Isn't that great? See how that works? It's very manipulative. But anyway, so, but one of the things that we laugh as a family about was when our kids they're a little bit younger, like college and just getting out of college, and I got this great idea, like it was Christmas and I got concert tickets to a Christian concert in Houston, and it been like I won't say the artist's name because it's going to sound like a slam to him, but it was one of these ones we had been real into as a family when they were younger. I'm like, oh, everybody's going to open it, the concert, and we'll all go as a family, it's going to be so fun. And one by one, they're like opening, they're like, we're going to drive to Houston for this? And you know what? And once again, it was that sinking feeling. And I was just like, I'm going to my room, you know? And again, it's just that I was valuing that concert so much, and they were not. So it's just what happens. Here, in the last verse on this sheet, it says, looking carefully lest anyone fall short of the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness springing up causes trouble, and by this many become defiled. And for working with college students, our whole adult life, and talking to a lot of people about their stories with their families, and mostly through our journey with our kids, I have seen how that root of bitterness can come up. When kids get to a point and they feel like, I've been controlled, I've been told what to do, I've been told what to value, and all of a sudden they're like, I want to be my own person. And so I think that whole motivation of coming to our kids and just saying, you are your own person, and you live your own life, and you make your own decisions. And I'm not, the whole idea of telling them, who to marry and what jobs to take and how their faith should be. All of those things, can be really detrimental. I heard a beautiful story of one of my mentors told me this, that one of her women that she had met with had talked about, she said, Carol, this lady really does have a healthy perspective on this. She said what she did is she went up in the home where they raised their kids and went up to the kids' rooms. And one by one, she prayed for the room, she prayed for the kid, and she realized this room is dead. They're not here anymore. And then she went to the next one, then she went to the next one. And she said, I wasn't even sad because this is where I'm supposed to be now. And I was like, oh, that is so powerful. And so just that whole idea of being able to release them that way. So that's a lot to think about, and it might feel like a little bit like a downer what I've shared, but if leading myself is the best thing I can do for my grown kids, then how do we lead ourselves? I want to show that quote, Jennifer.
Getting there. Is it that one?
No, not that one. That one. This is by one of my favorite authors, Ruth Barton. It says, leaders who allow God to work in and through their lives from the center out make the greatest impact in the world. So I think leading ourselves has to start from the center out. And I told you I'm a resource junkie and I love learning from however I can. I went to a conference just in January in Colorado, and the name of the conference was The Soul of Shame. And it was about dealing with shame in our lives and that whole, and I thought, for my own life, for my kids, and for those I minister to, I wanted to understand this more. And so, while I was there, the speaker, I loved this. He said, the way that we can experience healing in our lives is to put ourselves in a path of oncoming beauty. And he said, in all of our lives, there's God's part and our part. And our part is to build a beautiful path. And what does a beautiful path look like? Well, for me, I know a beautiful path is safe people in my life. I know it's God's word. It is God's creation. And so it was so encouraging to think that if we put ourselves, if we want to lead ourselves, we put ourselves in a path of oncoming beauty. And I called my husband, I'm like, I've got a beautiful path. I was so happy to know that in all my weakness and all my struggles and all the ways I've messed up as a mom and in marriage and in all those things, that I still was being healed. And you are too. And even being here is an example of putting yourself in a beautiful path. So I commend you for that. So that's the first thought. And speaking of path, that it's right in the middle there. And make straight paths for your feet. I love that that was in there. So that what is lame may not be dislocated, but rather be healed. So I'll just kind of put that in there in the whole idea of building a beautiful path. Am I going kind of fast? Good. Okay. So I want to share with you three points in terms of leading myself. I've already said the beautiful path. The first one, this may not be what you would expect, but I'm just going to say margin in my life. The ladies who have helped organize this know that's not a strength of mine, and I tend to just overpack things. It's just probably, again, a negative thing in my life. But about 5 years ago, I started learning more about having margin, having more silence, I actually have been taking a Sabbath, real Sabbath now for about 2 years, where on Sunday, from about Saturday night, about 5:30 to Sunday 5:30, I don't do work, I don't wash clothes, I don't wash dishes, I don't do anything that feels intense or ministry or email or anything where I do what I enjoy, and I'm with people I enjoy. I go on walks, I sit by myself, I read, I go outside, and that has been a great balm to my soul to start doing that. My husband actually does it on Saturday. He's a huge football fan, and so on Sunday he's like, that would not be a true Sabbath, because he's always screaming at the TV and stuff. But he does it on Saturday, so we both kind of developed this habit that has been really life-giving. So I think, you know, I was talking to a dear friend of mine in California, and she was in a really tough time. She's a counselor, actually, and is always bearing people's, you know, problems, and then has her own, you know, imagine that. And she was just so down and so sad, and I just said, Debbie, what if you just, you know how I like candles, I've mentioned this before, but what if you just lit a candle and sat and looked out today, because she's kind of on a lake. She's like, really? She's like sobbing. I'm like, yes, we're allowed to do that. We really are. So, I mean, sometimes we have to do that. I told someone, I think it was Jennifer, starting in late January, I started having these kind of low-grade headaches like every day, and I got them checked out and everything, but I determined it was tension because I was taking on more in my life. And so even at this conference we went to last week, I woke up one of the days and I asked my husband, I said, what would you think if I didn't go to the meetings today and I just stayed here by myself? And he's like, it's fine with me, but I talked to the lady in charge and she was fine with it. Do you know that I have not had one headache since then? Not one. Sometimes we gotta shut it down, you know, we really do. And I think margin has been a way that I've been able to start learning to lead myself. And it says in the second to last verse here, pursue peace with all people and holiness, without which no one will see the Lord. When I have margin, I can see the Lord. And that's huge in my life. And also, up to the first verse, I also can yield more the peaceful fruit of righteousness. So the second area is focusing on daily priorities and goals. Well, we all know this. I mean, you're like amazing women in this room, and I know we all set goals, but there's a very simple verse in the gospel, Luke 2:52, where it says, Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and favor with God and man. You might have looked at that verse before, but it talks about the 4 areas of our life. He increased in wisdom, which is the mental, stature, which is physical, favor with God, spiritual, favor with man, social. So that's a real, it's not on your sheet, but it's Luke 2:52, and it's just a simple way for me to lead myself, and often, depending on where we're stronger, I will, you know, I'll put like 1 or 2 goals at the start of a new school year, or some, you know, we work with college students, so it's like semesters, and that's how we talk. But I will write 1 or 2 goals, and usually there's always an area that I need to focus on more. And I've told y'all before, Vicky's not here today, but Vicky and I kind of have a barter system. She's like, I want to grow a little more spiritually, and I'm like, and I want to grow a little more physically, figure that out. So we're like helping each other with those 2 areas, which has been really fun to do. So that is a way that you can focus on your own, you know, leading yourself. And I was thinking about our past speakers who have been so awesome. Every one of the ones who have spoken have talked about, I'm sure Amy brought this up, like setting your mind, you know, think on Philippians 4:8. Think on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely. I remember one time somebody told me, they said, you know, something might be true, but it might not be honorable, so you might have to stop your mind there, right? So sometimes I think where our mind is a great indicator of our self-leadership as well. And I've mentioned a couple times about mentors. I'm guessing a lot of you have mentors in this room, but I don't know what I'd do without my mentors. I feel, I can think of 3 women just like this here in Austin that I meet with on a pretty regular basis and just talk to them about life and process and get their wisdom. There was a statistic that came out years ago that college students who have mentors ended up being a lot more successful in life. And, you know, I don't know where that came from, but it makes sense when we have people. So that has been another thing that has been huge in self-leadership has been my prayer group. You're all invited out to Round Rock. I know you want to drive up there, but it's on Monday mornings. It's called Moms in Prayer. Some of you might be involved in it. But I've been praying with Moms in Prayer since my kids were in elementary school. And we meet on Monday mornings from 9 to 10. I always say it's the best hour of my week almost, besides this. And And it has just to see the impact on our children being prayed for, but also my peace and my ability. It's very organized. We don't sit around and drink coffee and waste time. We get down to prayer, and it's an hour, and you're in and out, and it's been awesome. So the last area I want to talk about that kind of transitions into that is my ministry life, I would call it. So having margin, focusing on daily priorities and goals, and then my ministry life. And my heart's desire is that I would live every moment in view of what's eternal. And what is eternal? 3 things: God, His Word, and people. And so when I determine where I'm going to minister, what I'm going to do, that's kind of my criteria. It works great for us because people are always around, and everything can be eternal when we're connecting with people. So I wanted to show you a saying that, again, I think I shared last semester because it's one of my favorites. No, it's the Be Fearless one. Yeah. Meet Amy's family again. Why not? There it is. I have this in my bathroom up on the ledge. Be fearless in pursuit of what sets your soul on fire. Isn't that cool? I got that at the Round Top Antique Festival, by the way. But that is something I look at every day, and I kind of do inventory of my heart, like, what is it? And I've told y'all, this group sets my soul on fire. I mean, having this has been a thank you for linking arms with me and with all of us with this group, because it has given me so much joy. I spoke about, the eternal, and I just wanted to say, as I was preparing this, wherever you are in your journey with God, I just want to invite you, I would love to have a cup of coffee with you and talk about, if you have confusion about what does it mean that God loves me? What does it mean that I'm, imperfect and that Jesus paid the price and that I have to receive Him? What does the whole gospel message mean? I would be thrilled to sit down over coffee. So please initiate with me if you feel like that's a little bit fuzzy. We're here. That's the greatest thing that we can offer you is that treasure. So I think at this stage of life, as I close, we're often choosing between the good and the best. Don't y'all find that? There's so many good things. I know you women. I wish we had time for every woman to talk about the things that she's been doing and what God's doing. But I think it's always that, what is the best, that we have to ask ourselves. So that is a question that we can continue to ponder. If I were still chasing my daughter up the stairs, I probably wouldn't be here today. Because I think I would have been consumed. And I'm not saying that I still don't want to do it, and I still don't do it on times. But being freed from that has been very significant in my life. So I want now, as we kind of go into a time, how are we doing on time? We're 12:30, great. As we go into a time where I want us to be able to have some sharing, I first want to do something a little different and pass out a really powerful writing that one of my friends shared with me, and just have you take a few minutes. Thank you. Do you mind just passing? Take a few minutes to read it on your own. And we can put it up here too. Sorry, I didn't want to hand it out to you early because it'd be distracting.
I'd actually just pass them back and we'll get it.
Oh, did you? Is there enough? Okay. We have it up here. The map you make yourself. So just take a minute. We'll just be quiet and read, and then we can have some time for sharing and questions or thoughts or anything. So. and just the whole pilgrimage that we as women who want to know God go on that is unique. I just think this has so much to it. I just want to open it up as we think about some of the things that were shared today, and get your opinion, even on this reading, if there's anything that impacted you, anything about ways that help you lead yourself, anything that impacted you or that you would like to share for the benefit of anyone else, or any questions. And also, I just want to say that at the end of today, and we do this every time, is if you need prayer of any sort, we have prayer cards over there that you can write, and we keep those in confidence. Or if you just want to find Jennifer and pull aside and pray, that is such a powerful resource. If you're heavy-hearted or have something going on, please know it's all level at the cross. We're just one beggar telling another beggar where to get bread here. And so just please don't hesitate with that. So anyway, any thoughts, questions, clarifications based on what was shared or based on this, please don't hesitate.